Hi everyone, welcome to SGInnovate. Thank you for coming down once again on such an early morning. We are very glad to be working with SheLovesData and General Assembly on this event today. Community building is always a big part of what SGInnovate does, and we'll definitely be sharing more later on during the panel. So without further ado, I'll pass on the mic to Yana, who will start the panel. Thank you.
Good morning. I was just telling to my colleague Pavel when we were in a taxi this early in the morning that it's usually actually hard to get out of bed and come somewhere, at 9 o'clock to listen to a talk. So thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jana, and I have several hats. So I have two data startups. One of them is a technology startup called Mero. We are working with customer data, so we have our own technology. And then about 3 years ago, we've started with my colleague who's going to join me on a panel, a community that is called SheLovesData, because we talk a lot about data to everyone, and we are missing a diverse kind of audience, when we have those hour talks. So when Jin and I, we were talking about, how we run our communities, then, this talk came as a result out of that. So I will be moderating mornings, this morning's panel. You guys don't be shy and come and sit here. This should be an intimate kind of talk. And I would like to ask the panelists to come and join me. We have Gabi from General Assembly, and it's fantastic to have her here because, when we measure the size of the community, this is the largest one here, okay? So she manages about 40,000 database of 40,000 people. And then we have, and now it's early, and I forgot completely your first name is there. Okay, Tuan, thank you. Who is managing the community of SGInnovate, which is slightly different community, but with very impressive numbers as well, something over 30,000 members. And then we have Pavel, who's managing two communities. One is the SheLovesData, and the other one is kind of MarTech data-related community at Mero. Pavel. So what I would like to do is let these guys introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about them and their communities and their organizations. And maybe we can start with Gabi.
So hello everyone, thank you so much for inviting me on this panel, and thank you all who get up so early. I am not a morning person, so I admire you. For me it was very difficult. So my name is Gabriela, as Jana mentioned. I lead marketing and paid offerings for General Assembly Singapore. That means I run tons of community events to meet like-minded people. And before joining GA, that was around 2 years ago, I used to work for startups and corporates, mostly in technology space in Silicon Valley, London, back home in Slovakia, and all around Asia. And just to mention a little bit about our community, so our community is practically everyone who is curious about learning something new about digital technology skills and who kind of wanna meet like-minded people as me.
I would like to add that I think Gabri is such an energetic person. I have never seen anyone with never being low on energy, despite the fact she actually organizes so many events that, she has I'm a big admirer, I have to say.
Yes, and I also want to add that Gabriela just returned from a hiking trip in Borneo just yesterday, so that shows the level of energy that she always has for both work and fun. So good morning, everyone. My name is Tuan, and I'm with SGInnovate. We work with entrepreneurial scientists who want to build deep tech solutions in AI, in quantum technology, in medical technologies that can be brought from lab to market. And our value add to this community of entrepreneurial scientists is in three key ways. SGInnovate would invest in promising startups in deep tech. We would also help to develop the talent community to which we can help to have our early stage startups have access to the right data scientists, to the right machine learning experts in their growth journey. And at the same time, we also built up a very large network that allows our startups to have access and collaboration opportunities with corporates, with international partners in their growth phase. Through all of that, a big part of what we do here is, of course, community building. The community that we focus on bringing together, as represented by you here, is approximately 25 to 30% startups, 35% to 40% are corporates and SMEs, as well as industry associations, and the rest are more or less evenly distributed across investors, academics, government and international partners. So today I want to have this very exciting exchange because community building has actually been a big topic in Singapore as well as in ASEAN countries with whom we work, and I look forward to learning from everyone and from you guys as well. So do share with us if there are any best practices that we should look forward to trying out with you in the coming months. Thank you.
Good morning. It's an equally hard morning for me to get up this early. Very late night, very late working night last night. So my name is Pavel. I'm kind of the second half of everything that Jana said because we work together very closely. On the SheLovesData side, I'm more kind of a backend. I'm the only guy in the organization, which is right now about 40 volunteers, 35, something like that. So I'm the only man there. So you can imagine how that goes. I'm reduced to...
It goes very well, huh?
Yeah, I didn't meant to sound as a complaint, but it's a challenging in its own right. So I'm basically reduced to a role of an IT support for the most part, and I do kind of a lot more technical or organizational level stuff in terms of kind of a marketing technology that we use and kind of making sure that we have a consistency, because right now we run 7 different cities in 6 countries, and so we try to kind of keep it consistent. That's one of the key challenges that we have. I kind of also run the marketing and sales for our kind of commercial startup company, Mero, and I'm trying to kind of take a lot of the principles that we apply on SheLovesData as well at a small scale in Mero, and it's interesting how that shapes up. So I'm looking forward to the chat here today.
When this morning, Pavel and I, we were as well talking about how do you actually, what is the goal? How do you measure your community? And I think, what is so coming back asking you guys, why did you start to build the community, and what is the overall goal? What is the metric, for you as a community managers? That's one question. And second is, because there are some impressive numbers of your communities. When did you start, and how did you start? If you can, tell us a little bit about that, would be great.
Okay, let me start. So about community itself and my metrics, as General Assembly, we are an educational company. We are for a profit company, so that means, of course, one of my metrics is to bring new people, build awareness about new people who haven't heard about us. Other part is, of course, to create our loyal community who will keep returning, taking classes, of course, and coming to events and kind of spread the word that, yes, we are here and we try to help people to enter technology field. So my key metrics is to bring new people who haven't heard about before. That means new email in the end of the day. When I started to build this community, for me it was 2 years ago, but General Assembly started in Singapore 4 years ago. So the whole community started 4 years ago. I would say even during these 2 years, there were many different stages. Because when I entered, it was still very tiny team, and we focused purely on like first adopters of practically digital technology skills, so mostly like tech-savvy people, many founders, startup people. But during last year, I mostly collaborated with organizations outside of this core field, because I feel like people in this core area in Singapore, as it's such a tiny space, kind of know us already. They heard about GA at least from some way, like they can employ our graduates or they can potentially join a course. People from other parts of life, like for instance, we are collaborating with Moms at Work NGO. That means there are moms who need to reskill to enter the workplace again. This is a new community that we started to collaborate about a year ago. So this last year, I would say it's more about finding like who can potentially need us, that we can bring them to GA.
Did it change a lot, this change of the approach? Because the community building, you have to test the new ways how to build it. So what has changed to focus on other kind of target audience?
Honestly, it changed a lot, especially we see many females now. We do monthly ladies' nights, we do many breakfasts about like women, diversity, and it changed a lot, especially our instructors love it. Like I am organizing free classes for moms at work, for instance, that I mentioned, and I always ask instructor, I know it's daytime, it's hard to get from work, and can you maybe teach it? It's just 2.5 hours. And they're like, yes, of course, I love the audience, because these people are the most interactive people. Because people from technology mostly come and they know their questions. People from outside are curious about everything, because they're like, my kids are learning to code. I think I can do it too, so I want to know what is it.
Gabriela, last question on this is that you mentioned that you have more active members of the community. Would you be able to estimate what is the percentage of your active members and those that you have in your database?
That's a very good question. I would say I wouldn't.
Just an estimate,
yes.
just like rough.
Depends what active, because as I mentioned, our community, we have paid offerings and we have free community that are all these events that we have maybe 5 per week. And each of these events mostly see around between 70 and 100 people. So when you count that, okay, we do 20 events per month, each of the events is, let's say, 100 people, I would say 2,000 people per month only join the events itself. So I would say it's still very low percentage who actually actively come to almost every event or, I don't know, every week to join something, because we are focusing on various areas, like from user experience design to digital marketing to data science. We are also doing courses for corporates. That is very different audience. So I would say active community is still pretty low number from this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so how about when actually SGInnovate started to build the community? That's I don't even know.
Right. So I think there are 3 parts to what you're asking, Jana. The first is why we build our community, and when and how we do it. So
and how you measure.
Right. So we were formed in November 2016. So until now, we are in operation for about 2.5 years. Our focus is on deep tech entrepreneurship and innovations. When we first started, the concept of deep tech was not that well known in Singapore or even in the world. And therefore, we set out to build our community right from the start, because we believe that if there is more awareness, more readiness in the ecosystem to understand what deep tech, which comprises science and technology intensive or other frontier technologies such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, and so on, it will help us in doing our work better. There will be more entrepreneurs, there will be more investors who are ready to work with SGInnovate to invest in this journey. So that is why we want to bring together a total ecosystem of enablers to help our startups grow their deep tech solutions better. We did this when we started in November 2016. Our community started at 0. Exactly. There was nobody. At the end of the first year, and when we took stock of that, there were 9,000 people. At the end of the second year, we brought it to 25,000 people, and now we are at about 30,000. So we are very encouraged by the growth of the ecosystem. And as to how we do it and how we measure, we are very serious about a content-driven strategy in building our community. We want to build a community of purpose. People come together for the right targeted conversations, like what we are having now on putting together a good community. We want to have people who are engaged. So I think out of our 30,000 people in various areas of technologies where we hold events most actively in, we could see engagement rate that range as high as 80-85% even in new areas such as quantum technology. So we also add about 1,000 plus new people to our ecosystem every month. So that is also testimony to what it is that SGInnovate has been able to build for Singapore deep tech ecosystem here. We also focus on bringing what we do here offline to our online presence. So we are most active on LinkedIn and Twitter, gathering the community feedback on which topics would be best, what it is that we should do more of, and who it is that we should feature so that there are more and more of these conversations that we have here today.
So, anyone of you who is starting a community or thinking about growing a community? So my question is, how you actually start? Because those are such impressive numbers. So you have a day one. What do you do? And what are the communication channels? I understand content strategy is a big thing and quality of the content, but how do you start?
So the first and foremost question that we ask ourselves is the who. So there are three parts to this who. Who it is that we want to bring together, and that would determine what kind of content you want to have. The second who is who are the partners that could help us to actually multiply the growth of the community at the shortest period of time. When we first started, nobody knew about deep tech, nobody knew about who SGInnovate was. So our job was to go out there, talk to as many people who are like-minded in their mission as us, to bring together the like of Google, Microsoft, IBM, NVIDIA, AWS. These are the people that are leading the world in deep tech. And once they recognize the purpose of why SGInnovate is doing this, they rally around us. And that was how we had a jump in the growth at the first period of our growth stage. And the third part to the who is the internal team that you have in order to build the community that you want. The team could be having a one full-time person like Pavel and a team of volunteers like what we started off with. And as we scale up and have more activities, more metrics, more measurements, more engagements with our community, we introduce not just events, but also workshops, roundtable discussions, industry events that we participate in, and even our social media. The internal team that manages this needs to be nimble, adaptive, and be able to deal with a lot of unknowns. At the first starting point, there are a lot of questions that you want answers to, but it's not going to come, and you just have to try it out. Some things will work better than others, and you just need to pivot to the ones that bring the most result to you. And the team needs to also be committed enough to actually sustain the effort. Because if you just do 1 or 2 community building activities in a year, you might as well not start.
Yeah. Pavel, I know we started and we kind of did not have in mind that we will build some large community. It kind of came as an incredible side product of our first workshop that we've put together. And I as well want to say that Pavel is not only the back office IT guy, he's actually as well our principal digital marketing guru. He doesn't like the word guru, but I'm going to say that. So he's the guy behind actually all the innovative approaches to, what to do in terms of building the community. He was the one saying like, okay, so we need to have a certain strategy to actually keep the members of the community engaged and coming back. So I just want to make it, clear that your role is slightly different. And remember, we had humble beginnings, and today we have close to 10,000 people with, in our database. And so your thoughts for a beginning.
Okay, so there's a few things, and I think I can kind of always split this into the 2 roles that I'm kind of handling, right? Because there's a very distinctly different approach to how we are doing it at the commercial company, at Meiro, which is a tech startup, and I'm obviously my objective there is to sell as much software as I can. And the community side of it, the sort of the non-profit side of it, which is the SheLovesData, because it's very different, because you always have to start with the objective. For me, the upside for me doing any type of community activation with Meiro is very obvious. If I'm trying to reach my potential buyers through ads, I'm one of probably 5,000 that are trying to do it in a day, and people are banner blind, like advertising is not effective, and it's really hard to push message out like that. But if I can get 50 people that are extremely relevant to my business into a room, give them some value, buy something interesting that they're going to learn something, and it's a concentrated brand exposure for over an hour. That's kind of compared to value compared to seeing a banner somewhere, right? So that's pretty obvious and pretty straightforward, and there's the kind of the attachment to the business goal is pretty clear. With the non-profit side of things, it gets a little bit more complicated. I think there are two questions to ask. It's why are you doing it, and what do you get out of quantifying it? So why are we doing it? It's pretty obvious. Like when we hired our first analyst in Singapore 4 years ago, it goes something like this. You put out a job on LinkedIn, or you put out a job on Indeed or something like this, and you're gonna get back CVs. 90% of those are going to be guys, and the 10% remaining, 90% of those 10% is going to be typically someone who is a database analyst with a 10 years experience, kind of locked in one silo in a bank, ladies, and not really like a business kind of savvy analyst. So we're seeing like this just doesn't work. Like it's really hard to hire because there's one profile you're seeing only, and you are ignoring the 50% of the addressable market of the workforce, right? Women. So this is no good. We kind of joined the dots between an organization we've seen in Europe, which has been doing education of women, kind of not necessarily in just data analytics, but broadly in kind of IT, in STEM, in tech. And we kind of saw this would be cool. Let's try something like this. We started with one workshop, simply tested the water by putting $50 behind Facebook ads, and we had within 3 days 300 registrations for a workshop that had 60 seats. So that kind of showed us that there is an appetite for something like this, right? We did the workshop, we ran it, it went really well, we had great feedback. We were like, oh, okay, so there's clearly appetite for a lot more. So we started thinking, how can we do this and what do we get out of it? Because it's not, even though it's a non-profit, you have to have a strategy, and it would not be honest to kind of think that you are doing this for the better world. Like there's always has to be some kind of alignment with something else you are doing. So for us, it's this exposure to a community that we feel to be part of, which is the tech, which is the data. And yes, of course, we hire through it. We kind of, that this is one of the things that makes us a little bit different, that our teams appreciate. Like we have a lot of our team in Mero are teaching the courses at SheLovesData, and this is something that they really see as something with a little bit reach a little bit beyond the commercial sphere with the company. So kind of this benefits us in the commercial space as well. So there's a big overlap, absolutely. And when we kind of look at, I don't want to necessarily talk about just yet about how we did it, but if you look at kind of the measurement of it, so what's the size of a community? What does this even mean? Is it your email database? Is it your website reach? Is it people who go through events? For me, the question is, why are we even asking ourselves what this number is? With SheLovesData, my answer is pretty clear. Like one of the parts of the model that kind of that helps to keep the lights on is media partnerships that we have, because there's lots of commercial conferences that are being organized in Singapore and generally around Southeast Asia, and they approach us for media partnership. We get tickets, we get discounts for the community, which is nice content, and we give them exposure into the community in exchange. And of course, for something like this, we need to have it quantified, right? So things like website traffic, things like email database are interesting assets. And the fun thing with numbers is like you can really you can position them in a way that they seem fun. Like if I tell you that we have 400 people on Twitter, not so impressive. If I tell you that we have 15,000 unique people on social media combined, probably a little bit better. If I tell you that we've provided over 50,000 hours of free education, that's impressive, So it's kind of about positioning it as well, and being mindful of the end goal here, of what we are trying to do. And for me, that kind of media partnerships is one of the key things that kind of helps drive this, and also extend the reach in exchange a little bit.
Okay, this is great. I'm going to combine a few questions here, because let's go into the tools and the systems you're using for building and managing the community. Because all those tools and systems are generating different types of data, are you guys using it for your community management, engagement, measurement, growth? And if yes, who actually manages it, and who works with all this data that is generated by, the various tools in your community? And how do you use it for a greater benefit of, reaching your goal?
So that were many questions. Let me start. So practically, I would say there are two different kinds of data that we are using at General Assembly. One is focused on our paid offerings. That means 3-month-long courses, part-time courses, workshops. For these, we have plenty of data. We are collecting data and information practically about students. We can optimize the offering because we know what demand we have for which course. We can build schedules, timelines for that. There is other part, the complementary part, that means these community events and free classes. I have bit limited data for this because all I know practically it's what we collect in the registration forms. Sometimes we collect just names, emails, sometimes we collect more. Then I have data from social media. That means I have basic social media metrics as we use Instagram, we use Facebook, we use Twitter. But it's still very limited. I cannot rely just on data when I am building something or building my schedule. I know which partners are bringing many new people to our community as SGInnovate. I know which partners are maybe nice to collaborate. We like to collaborate. They have a very engaged community, but it's not really reflects in my metrics. That doesn't mean we don't collaborate. I just know what to expect, but it more comes with time. So the free offerings, I cannot rely fully on data. That's more still kind of guessing. Okay, I spoke with these people on the event. They were interested in this topic. We had many attendees for this kind of topics. Let's try something like this. So it's still trial error. So for the paid one, that's completely based on data. What was the next question?
The question is, what kind of tools do you use to, manage the community or communicate and engage the community?
Mm-hmm. So our key, I would say, channel when you once enter into GA is email marketing. We have many newsletters. Every Sunday we send out newsletter. We have emails targeted based on the course offerings, based on what interest you actually mark on the website or what kind of event you attended. So the key is event marketing. And then for us, it's very important, Instagram and meetup.org. So we post everything there. As I mentioned, we don't really use so much analytics after that. It's more just practically using it as a channel to get it out there. Otherwise, on the other side, we use many events aggregators. So like E27, they have kind of section on the website that is cumulating events for Singapore. There is list.org. There is Tech in Asia had the similar one, but I think they always paid, so we don't use it anymore so much. So I would say the kind of free aggregators of events in Singapore, it's something that we use. I often post on other channels, like I often post on SheLovesData when we have something really relevant for their community. When I have event about blockchain, I join Facebook events around blockchain and crypto, and I post the events there. So it's various for every event, but I try to be active in like local Slack channels and local communities in terms of Facebook and Meetup.
So it's a full-time job to kind of even monitor what is happening around your kind of community and find out other communities and enter them.
For me, honestly, I would love to be able to understand them better. I would love to know, like, okay, what kind of topics they really want to hear about, who I should invite on the panel. But it's more like I have to go to this event, I have to see the attendees, I have to talk to them, and I have to see what kind of questions they ask to know what I should do next. So it's very hands-on.
So how about you guys?
So who among you here still use Excel for your data management and conservation work? So I suppose Excel is still a big tool, right? So that was what we first started out when the database and the network that we have was still manageable. Along the way then, of course, we professionalized the way that we do it. So we started implementing HubSpot to help us manage the 30,000 people that we have, email communications, targeted segmentation of who it is that we want to reach out to. For example, we know what it is that our community is interested in, whether it is to attending workshops, whether to mentor our startups, whether to work with us in a voluntary capacity. So we reach out as and when there is opportunities for us to actually do something beyond just the events that we have you here. Of course, we have different systems for different purposes as well. So HubSpot could actually serve as the overarching CRM system. But when we delve deeper into our talent database, we need to understand better, in more granular terms, what it is that this talent is capable of, what is the skill set that he or she has, how many years of experience in which industry. So we have another system for that. And for our investment purpose, we also need to have another separate system to manage our portfolio company growth, what it is that they are looking for, what are the needs at whichever stage. So that is another separate system. So we professionalize and harmonize all of these systems such that there is a good info systems flow within SGInnovate. In terms of the communications channels, then I agree that the email marketing is still the most effective for us. We actually also take care of the timeline in which our marketing messages go out, and also I think the content that is introduced at certain point in time is also taken into account as well. So we realize that even if we have an excellent and most relevant content to our community, but if we only started talking about it last week, it's not going to be well received. We think that the golden period for marketing is about 3 to 4 weeks at least before the event. So that is something that we are always interested in. And we also use our social media channels to magnify what it is that we do here. And because of our social media as well as our physical activities, we are having a very good sense of what it is that our community responds to better. And therefore, we are able to refine our work and meeting the needs of the community in a more effective way.
Thank you. Pavel.
So there's a few things in this. For what's kind of a little bit more tricky for us is that we are very, very budget constrained. So we don't have any external funding for SheLovesData. It's kind of supported mainly by our own time. There's few things that cost us money technologically, like an email platform and stuff like that. But we try to keep this very, very lean. Of course, given the name of the community, SheLovesData, we should kind of, you would expect that we do something with it. So we are, I would say, quite savvy. We have a CRM where we put people. Whenever you sign up for our workshop, you have to fill out quite intensive questionnaire about where did you go to school, what type of a job do you have, and how, time in industry and what you do. So we obviously take this information and structure it somehow as well. So we are able to present it to potential partners and sponsors. So we are actively looking for corporate sponsorship. So obviously within the data community, anyone who is enterprise software platform, your Googles, Microsofts of this world, and data analytics companies are typically quite intrigued by what we do, so they would like to kind of work with us a little bit closer, co-host events, post jobs on our platforms and whatnot. So we welcome that, but in exchange, we are looking for partnerships and sponsorships. So with this, what's obviously key is to have this data ready to present it nicely, so we can tell them exactly who they will be talking to. So it's not just saying, hey, we've got, it's not the influencer model where you say, I've got 10,000 followers. Give me money. Like now, we want to do a little bit more in exchange. Of course, understanding content is really crucial. We kind of, I think, from the top level, where I am across all of the 8 different chapters that we have, it's interesting to look at trends, because certain things work differently in different cities. We know that in Jakarta it's really hard to organize everything during the week because people's generally not really available, so we do stuff on the weekend. We know that in Hong Kong we're going to have a much higher rate of no-shows at events if they are free. So there are kind of like the specifics that you will learn. We know that in Australia, for example, Facebook is really ineffective way to communicate, because people simply don't spend too much time on it. So you need to be a little bit more old school, like emails, and so we kind of you learn this through data. So it's not necessarily as much about tools, but again, what are you trying to pay attention to? Like you could use the fanciest tool, but if you don't have a good objective, they're not going to help you a whole lot. What's crucial for me is simple things like Google Analytics. So understanding where the audience is coming from, understanding where are they spending their time. We've one of the things that I would like to invest a little bit more into is a content side of kind of our website and sort of long-form written content. We've started doing really cool interviews, and this is something that keeps drawing people in and keeps traveling and keeps bringing in new audiences into the website, which we then can translate into the offline events as well. So that's kind of that's where I'm thinking that's the most interesting.
Gabi?
Just to add, practically I believe I operate in a little different way from you two guys, because you are based in Singapore and you are focusing mostly from Singapore. As we are a global company, I have a whole dedicated email team in New York. So practically they work for me, I would say, like an agency, even though they are internal. So I actually request what I need what kind of audience I need, or what kind of events I need to promote more, less, and so on. But they are optimizing the timing, they are building the actual content. And I actually just see if we are using Looker internally. So from the Looker, I just pull out the reports that I need to see. So I know which events sell how much from email, and where I need to work more, for instance, on social media. So I'm kind of on local basis here.
Yeah. Like we are talking about data, and I would like to ask Tuan about data privacy and all the new regulations that are coming up. And I would like to ask you, because you're a pretty grown organization supported by government, we need to look at PDPA and GDPR. How do you guys build those rules in, and what is the kind of governance around your data?
So we do take data privacy and security very seriously. So the GDPA and the PDPA and the GDPR guidelines are readily available. So we consult with our legal team as well as our internal information and IT team to ensure that whichever data policies that we put out there for data collection, retention, and marketing purpose is compliant with Singapore's PDPA first and foremost. We also have put in place a data governance framework internally to make sure that there is always someone at a senior leadership level to take care of the issue for us, and that is how we actually ensure that we maintain the very strong compliance with Singapore's government guidelines for this, of course.
And I think if you are starting to build the community, or you are doing that, just make sure that every time you are, sending out something, have a consent, and double check what kind of communication you send out, because the rules are getting more strict. And it's important to remember that the legal framework, and it's hard because we at SheLovesData started, with basically no legal support. But what we do, we look at, what are the standards, and kind of make sure that we have some templates, and we work with the tools that are working, around those data regulations, and making sure that, we are not just doing some communication which is out of the legal kind of framework. Very important. Okay, guys, the time is kind of running, and I would like to maybe ask about a few things. How do you engage the community? And what are the best kind of tips for, having the engagement rate high? And now I'm meaning like in terms of communication, but as well, online and offline. Any tips, something you see is working well? What would you advise those that are in a beginning of the journey? And what is a specific for a large community like your two communities?
Okay, so I'm starting again. Let me start from the last question. So practically how to start. I would say definitely find something that you can spend a lot of time on, that you are passionate about. Because I wouldn't be able to do the same job about, let's say, cosmetics or about some products. I like technology. I like learning. I myself, I'm attending many workshops, courses at my own company. So if I wouldn't believe in what we do, and if I wouldn't myself wanna see these panelists that I'm inviting always and hear from them, I wouldn't be able to be till 9, 10 on the event and really listen to them and spend time and watch the attendees and kind of get to know who is here. So I would say definitely it has to be something that you like and you can commit for long term, because you cannot build community during 1-2 months. Okay, you can, but maybe of 100 people. So it has to be something that you can commit for a long term, and you can take many, many small steps. Because I mentioned it's a lot of hands-on work. Like you really go, you join these Facebook groups, you join these Slack channels. So you really need to join these people. You need to kind of understand what they need. So it has to be something you like to do. So that is how to start. And another thing I would say it's don't try to build at first some automated engine and everything and invest in it. Start with the small steps. There are many free platforms. There are Google Analytics. There are social media, other analytics. There are platforms who can help you optimize social media or actually schedule your posts. So start with small steps. Start with this hands-on approach because it will help you understand for who you are building it and what you are building it. When you scale to some, I would say 10,000 or 5,000, 10,000 and more, yes, you need to automate a lot. That's a different way, but start slowly. The second part of the question was, what was it?
How do you, the engagement?
Okay.
Of the community, because I think we've heard here that content is very important. So if you get content right,
yeah.
But how do you engage the community to actually being active?
Yes. So I would say for me, it's easier to understand who I wanna bring than actually how to engage later. But definitely, our team is building relevant content. So they are collecting data of, let's say, what kind of salary gap you will get if you wanna enter a data science field from some other areas. What are the expected salaries? What are the needed skills? Where to actually start? So they are building content not about the course offering or not about event itself, but how it will help in the end of the day. And they are trying to answer the questions that people who are considering career change or people who are actually considering to upskill for their job or corporates that need trainings, what are their main questions? What they need to know? So actually they're focusing on answering these questions. And when I would be considering, let's say, I want to become a data scientist, I want to know what kind of salary gap I will take, what I need to do, what kind of language I should learn. For instance, what community I should join. This is why we collaborate so much locally, because they are trying to provide this information for people that they want to know. And when you provide relevant information, people will read it, because people want to know it.
So I can go. So how to build it from scratch and how to engage it as a community, right? So on how to build it first. So a couple observations from my personal experience. It is really hard. Like, don't do it. It's just so hard. No matter whether you are starting a podcast, building offline community, doing a meetup, getting a newsletter, or building a blog, it is really hard. And there's like 1,000 of what you do already out there and just mature, right? So unless you were finding like a podcast 2 years ago when it was really, really fresh, and you would just have the natural momentum of that platform that like you were one of the few and one of the early ones that everyone will flock to initially, that's great. Otherwise, it's really hard. So 2 pieces of advice to it, like have a niche, like be very specific. Something that it's not for everyone. Like we were like one of the companies we work with commercially, and I see the challenge is Esplanade Theatres here. The difficult thing that they have is that they are supposed to be by design for everyone in Singapore. How do you build a community of 6 million people? Impossible. Like you can build probably million communities of 6 people, but not one of 6 million, right? So this is really, really difficult. So what we are doing with SheLovesData, very, very specifically focused, very niche. I think this is important. I think SGInnovate is going to be the same thing with kind of a deep tech and few pockets in there. The other thing is when you choose the platforms, don't choose where people want to be, not what you like. I like Instagram, but Instagram is not the best platform for what I'm doing. What I'm doing is a little bit more about kind of a long-form content, a little bit more text-heavy, so this is probably not the best. And most importantly, choose the platforms to engage where people are, where people want to be. So, Facebook group in Australia, not the best place to start with. You probably want to do newsletter or something like this, So keep it relevant to your audience and kind of watch out and watch the data for their preferences, where they are coming from to see this. So that's kind of on the starting part. On how to keep the community engaged. That's really method that works. Being consistent. Like if you are going to do newsletter and you're going to commit doing it every week, do it every week, no exceptions, no matter what. If you're going to publish something, do it regularly. Because if what we do is we organize a workshop, I wouldn't personally consider that a community is someone who went to my workshop 5 years ago. That's just an entry in my email database at this point, and someone who probably didn't open my email in 3 years anyway. So that's not really a community. But when you do an event, do communication before, do communication post, keep people engaged and keep it consistent. I'm not saying post on social media 3 times a day. That's probably a little bit over the top. So you have to watch out for like kind of a performance input-output kind of ratio, but keeping it consistent is really, really important, and being aware that it takes a while to build things up before they start sort of going, and you kind of find how they call it, like the real true 100 fans of your business or whatever community you are trying to do. I think that's the first critical milestone to get to something like this.
Tuan, you guys made a great job in terms of defining what kind of topics are linked to SGInnovate. So if I'm thinking artificial intelligence and I want to learn something, then I will look you up and come to your panel discussions or workshops. So what does it even mean, engagement, for you guys?
So first, I cannot agree more with Pavel on the importance of being differentiated in the community that you want to build. And once again, it is the quality content that would help to differentiate what it is that you are building in order for us to actually own the deep tech space and the AI space that Yana is asking about. So once we have the quality content, we can then just set the conversation in the topics that we want to lead the market in, and that helps with engagement as well. So people associate AI, deep tech, quality content with us, it makes our job become easier. And working with quality partners helps with that as well. SGInnovate is not an AI, a quantum tech expert ourselves. So we identify who it is that we want to reach out to and propose why it is that they should work with us, so that helps at the first starting point. I want to talk a little bit more about the targeted engagement that we are able to do, because we understand data points from our community. We start out with open events like this, then we zoom in on C-suite leaders who want to have a more targeted conversation for peer learning and knowledge sharing purpose, so that they can go deeper into a particular topic. So we would invite just the top 10 or 15 AI for enterprise leaders who are looking to build their companies and multinational corporations into AI-first organizations. For the investment community, we want to build the awareness that deep tech is actually a promising field for us to actually look at, and investors or corporate VCs need not wait until the risk is less before they jump in. So we have investors evenings where we bring together investment friends in Singapore as well as from overseas to talk about a particular topic. So if they are concerned about medtech investment, how it is that they can de-risk medtech due diligence without having a medtech expert in-house, how it is that they can understand what quantum tech companies are doing to make the right decision in investing. And the third group that we engage with more in a more targeted manner is the talent group. So we have internship and apprenticeship program for young talent in deep tech, and because we know who it is in our network that are more interested in such opportunities, we are able to go out to universities, to polytechnics to do that a lot better. So in terms of the engagement level, if we send out an email to an open event like this, we would have an engagement rate on open click rate of about 20%. If we send out something that is on a targeted level, that almost doubles or triples. So that would be about 60% open rate if we do the targeted one. And we are able to do targeted engagement because of the data points that help aid our understanding of what the community needs.
How big is your team? Who actually works with your community and the data that is generated by all the tools?
So Gabriela talked about the long game in building the community. So it's not like a quick win that we can create within a 1 or 2 months. We do about 3 or 4 events a week. So far we've done about close to 400 different events since our starting day. The total number of people that we brought together is close to, I think, about 40,000 who have come through. We have a team of 3 of us who manage all of that, and also to manage the data system. Of course, we have a very strong team of social media and communications to help us with some of the key messages that we should go out with, and also to expand our online presence. So we started with LinkedIn and Twitter, and now we are going into YouTube. We also start to do a lot more of thought leadership white papers that crystallizes what it is that we learn from events, from roundtables that we participate in.
So it's another way how to generate traffic to your communication channels with some thought leadership pieces.
Absolutely. The
Pavel
thought
mentioned
leadership
that as
paper
well
helped.
with the blogs. Well, I think it's about the time to ask you guys if you have some questions to the panel. And really don't be shy. If you have some specific questions which we didn't talk about, let's talk about that. Let me do this, so it's going to be easier.
Hi, I'm Susanne Hasener from Yara. I work with people in the rural areas in the region, people who don't use email, but who are very much online. Do you have any experience, perhaps through your clients at Meiro or so on, in connecting with such communities and providing them with meaningful experiences?
Not so much about like personal experiences, because what we do is very like urban based. So everything we do is like, if I look at where SheLovesData has chapters, we are in big cities around Asia. We started Singapore, we got Sydney, Melbourne, Auckland, Jakarta, Hong Kong, and so on, KL, and we kind of keep going, right? So like we always start out in the big cities. We kind of have a long-term strategy that we would scale into the sort of more regional, but still a cities. I think with this question, the only answer is go where that community is. And I kind of have my own parents back in Europe, a comparison to this. For them, internet is equivalent of Yahoo in the world, right? So if for a lot of people, if you look at some surveys from Thailand, Cambodia, Thailand maybe not so much, but like Cambodia, Laos, like if you look at what does internet means to them, it's Facebook. That's the first thing that they imagine. So that's where you need to be, very simple. And there's a bunch of formats how you can broadcast content on just that platform itself. That's very rich, and that's kind of the way to go. So kind of understand well how people use it and just be where they are. It's very simple.
I maybe add on that as well that we are now talking to some bodies in Cambodia outside of Phnom Penh, and we actually work with governmental organizations that are supporting growth, like a German trade commission for Asia, for example, because they already have done their research. They know what are the cities and communities that need this support or where they find relevant people. So that's maybe another way. There.
Thank you. I wonder what kind of metrics do you deliver to sponsors if the events are sponsored by some company, and also how to track how successful it was. Maybe the sponsors getting more job application after sponsoring these events. What are the post-event metrics for you guys?
So I can take this one. What we do with SheLovesData, we don't necessarily have like a specific one-off event sponsorships, but we try to do a little bit more, again, a long-term engagement and committed approach to working with partners. We try to kind of amplify it. So if I'm looking at like media partnerships that are kind of the most straightforward, we are looking at a little bit of exposure on every key asset we have. So we will do featuring in email where we can show them open rates and how many people we've sent it to. We'll put up a listing on the website in event section, on which I can show them how many people have seen it and where are they coming from, at least like geographically. So it's really easy to assemble a quick report like this, and you kind of typically you actually really usually need to kind of show this in the beginning when you are setting something like this up. It's not necessarily that we would be in a function that we're not talking about budgets that would allow us to have like an extensive campaign reporting as if it was an advertising agency. So that's a little bit different. Some partnerships might have a different structure. So we are looking at the job section is actually pretty interesting, and we haven't dived deep enough into this, but we know that we help in the past to hire to partners. There's few people who work on Facebook thanks to kind of the outreach to the community these days. So we see that this is something extremely valuable, especially if you look at the cost of like something like an executive search and headhunting, right? And so that's something that we need to look into more. But it's a little bit specific for each. I think simply for events, for offline events, if you were looking at it, definitely attendance, definitely registrations, because sometimes registration might be even more meaningful if your business goal is to grow a database, kind of get more website leads in. Then if it comes through the website, it counts even though if the people didn't come. So it's could be anything on that kind of range and scale.
Do you guys want to add something?
Yeah, so actually this is an interesting question because it brings us back to why we built a community. So we want to build a community in order to catalyze deep tech innovations from Singapore. And when our corporate partners come to us, the main value add that we can bring to corporates are in 3 key ways. The first is to update them on the key trends and happenings in deep tech. So they will look to SGInnovate as the credible source of information and updates for that. So we do work with corporate partners on that front. The second part is to hold events that help to position the corporates in the right way so that they can be seen by the ecosystem as at the forefront of innovation, of AI and so on and so forth. And they come to SGInnovate because we can make things happen a lot more easily for them. And the third, which is what a lot of corporates are starting to ask us about, is identifying and arranging for them to meet with relevant startups who can help them to solve specific business challenges. So we work with healthcare companies, transportation, financial services, professional services as well, to ensure that if there is a need for the business unit to be met, and that can be done by working with SGInnovate, and we will source for the right startups for them to meet and to help the startups grow at the same time, then that's the main value add that we bring to our partners or sponsors.
I want to add on that very practical stuff because we just had with SheLovesData, we did a machine learning meetup with Microsoft. And so my key takeaway was that we had Microsoft people organizing it with us. The question that Microsoft asked was, what is the demographics of the attendees? So it really helped to send them, okay, this is the demographics of the community. So they got an idea, who's going to be sitting in the audience. And as Pavel mentioned, we have pretty detailed information. We know from what industries are people coming, what jobs they have, what level of education, age bracket, and everything like that. So that helps very much before the event. So say, this is the target, this is what we want to do, and those are the goals. And then what was great, like yesterday, or this morning, I saw email from the girl on Microsoft who actually participated in it. And she sent email across the whole region, sending pictures from the event, linking, feedback she got, on her performance. So there were snippets of what people said, feedback, comments. And then she basically said, we had 90 plus people, out of this community. This is the feedback. So not really any kind of, I would say, like numbers, but it's a lot of emotions as well going into reporting on your activities. And it had incredible response. Right away we got, okay, you guys have to bring it to Australia now. It was like coming back like that. So, engage your partners in creating this, whatever it is you're doing together with you, and let them as well report their own way within their organization. So what then we do as well, and we always, have pictures from the event, we tag logos, we send it back to the partners, this is how it looked like, those were the messages, this is the feedback. And it's really, really very powerful. Okay.
I would say, just to add, we don't have sponsors, we have partners. So when we meet someone who has the same goal as we have, when we collaborate with SheLovesData, they have women interested in data. We want to see more women in our data classes. Common goal. That means none of us is kind of sponsor. We collaborate to put together a good event, have a good attendance. Of course, we both share numbers, like how many people registered, how many attended. But the key is that we have this common goal. So practically none of us feels like, okay, the other one will organize something for us. No, with SGInnovate is the same. We have a common goal. We want to bring more awareness about data, technology in Singapore, put together events. So they help us mostly with this beautiful space. We mostly put little more maybe in the content, and we both invite community. So we don't have actual sponsor, we collaborate.
I think this is a very important thing, what I've seen as well in past. I've seen people gathering closely their community, saying like, those are kind of my people, and this doesn't work at all. What Gabi is doing so well is reaching out to other communities and say like, okay, we have a common topic, let's merge our communities and let's create, you know, interesting content. So I think this is really, really powerful, how you can grow your community by opening up to other communities, right? I think that's very important. More questions?
Hi, my name is Talib. I'm sure at some point all of you have had corporate jobs, or maybe not. And how would you, I guess my question is, what is the difference you feel about what you're doing now versus where you were before in those corporate jobs in trying to establish that community? I mean, I'm sure there was some resistance when you were in your corporate jobs before. So I kind of want to get a little bit more of that.
Who wants to start?
I have to say that my only corporate job was like 6 years ago for one year, and I was working on a corporate social responsibility project that was focused on technology education. So they wanted me to bring community. And other corporate job was in Silicon Valley when I was working for Fujitsu Innovation Lab. So it was the same role. It was corporate, but I was on the side of innovation partnerships. I have to say that for me, both these corporate roles were very open-minded. So I didn't maybe face this issue of typical corporate job. What I see when I collaborate with corporates in Singapore, it just takes, I would say, a little longer. They need a little more approvals. They need to see, they need to, I would say, get more approvals before actually acting. For me, it's like, I want to do something, I see why I'm doing it, how it is meeting my goal, but I don't need like formal approval from General Assembly people or someone to actually do it when it's aligned with our goals. So
for you, it's been always basically similar role, no matter who you work for.
Even when I was in corporate, I was this little separate person.
You created your own job and role.
Actually, I think I understand where you're coming from. Are you with a corporate now, right now? I see. So in my previous role in a corporate environment where I was supposed to build an innovation-centric community, and also from my perspectives, working with my corporate partners right now in their respective roles, while corporates actually have the most resources to make things happen, they face two challenges. The first is the speed at which things happen take a really long time. So we'll be talking to people that says, okay, let's revisit this in 6 months' time, and during that 6 months, we'll already be able to do a lot more things. And the second part is that for corporates, a lot of the decisions are still driven by bottom line. And so the community that a corporate is able to build might be driven by that perspective a lot. What it is that can be measured in terms of ROI, in terms of financial reporting at the end of the financial year. And so a lot of our corporate partners will say, we really want to work with you to engage with the startup ecosystem, to engage with the community on deep tech, but my marketing colleagues or my business unit is asking, why should I invest $10,000 for you to do that? And a lot of times we need to find creative ways, like as Gabby mentioned, how it is that we can justify things not on a dollar value. So it's a big challenge, I gotta say. Somehow, given all the resources, the scale that a corporate has, the most effective setup to build a community that is more strategic has been where I am now, rather than in the previous roles I'm with, and we can have a better exchange after this, so that I can see what it is that you are particularly facing.
Have you as well asked, is there as well in your question that you ask how these people got from corporate jobs into these type of jobs, or? I can only assume you hated it. That you hated your corporate, like, look, I have a long career working for corporate organizations now. With Pavel, we run SheLovesData, we have 2 startups, and it's a liberating experience. And you have to have a little bit more courage because it's not stable in terms of finances, in terms of any kind of like evolution. It's harder to predict than to have a stable job where you know that at the end of the month someone will pay you kind of no matter what. And if you lose this job, you get another kind of corporate job in a similar field. And making this change has been, it's a decision. But I think, and maybe Pavel can talk about it a little more, but for me, and I as well changed from corporate job into a kind of startup world in my late 40s. So as well, people kind of judge you and say like, how come you change in a career right now? I mean, you can easily live for another 10 years and then retire, but I have to say that, all this stuff we've been doing with Meiro and with SheLovesData, it's so exciting. And I wake up in the morning and I actually know that I do something meaningful, which matters to me. And with the community, and that's another kind of fantastic, I would say, added value, and I'm sure you guys experienced it as well. You have people that are coming to you saying, thank you for, doing this for free for us. We learn something, but as well, we create a network for people that they can, do peer-to-peer mentoring. They learn something together. They create study groups together. So we create a kind of like-minded community of people that they meet individuals they would not meet otherwise in their job. So you wake up in the morning, you know that you have an issue with the cash flow right now because your large client is not paying you right now because of their internal bureaucratic issues. But at the end, it's a completely differently rewarding experience and I'm talking from my perspective, for me as an individual, and I learn much more than I think ever learned in a corporate world.
Actually, I just want to make a disclaimer here. While in my opinion, I feel that corporates may not be the best structured to take a long game in building up a community, corporates are still a big part of the community that SGInnovate is building, and the value add that they bring is different. It's not from the community building perspective, but it is from the ability to scale up significantly across borders when they are ready to do that. So that's why the biggest group in our community is actually corporates and industry associations. We work with them a lot at the start and then as a later stage of our community building as well, because there's a lot of interest from the corporate, but out of 100 people who are interested, we only see about 4 or 5 that actually, so there are still good people in corporates that want to make things happen, but it's just that it needs, these good people need to jump through a bit of a marathon before to get to where we are. Yeah.
Any other questions? So let me just ask these guys the very last thing. One single advice for you would mean success in building a community.
So the advice of the measure of success. I think for something like what we do with SheLovesData, it's just when we get a feedback, and sometimes it's just an email message and something, and it's a message that you get from someone who's been on like a parenting leave for 10 years, had 3 kids, and now they are kind of about to return to workforce or want to restart their career at like age of like 35, 40 or something like that, and they will message you that they this has given them a completely like a new impulse to do it, and they're gonna switch take a leap and learn something for 3 months and gonna start a course in whatever education industry, and 3 months later they're gonna message you again that they got a job and they're starting this career at this company, right? Like that's amazing. Or you are seeing messages from say like an undergrad in university who's doing something completely different, went to our course on and off chance being introduced and invited by a friend, and they ended up like switching their major and going completely different way because they realized this is something they've never seen before, but they can relate to it a lot more than that. So like it's ultimately, you kind of the be able to measure the success. It's about the numbers, it's about the community overall, but then it all comes down to individual unique stories that you hear from people that you've kind of touched directly or indirectly, and that's what makes it successful. Like, so to me.
So listen to your community feedback.
So in our experience, if you are serious about building a high growth, high impact community, the first starting point is to invest in a capable team, whether it's 1 or 2 person, whether it's full-time, part-time, volunteer, but it is a job that is not as easy as it sounds, like organizing events. To be honest, everyone in Singapore and around the region is inundated with event requests. I'm sure you receive as many as, I don't know, like 10, 15, 20 events invites in a week. So it's not about putting together an event, but it's about what it is that you want to do with the people who come to the event. And that brings me to the second point, that we are driven by a community of purpose. We want to make sure that people come together for a particular purpose, objective, shared mission, and not just have fun and have some chit-chat and that's it. It's meaningful to us to see that startups at the early stage who need a lot of support are connected to the right investors or corporates through the activities that we build. It is meaningful to us when we see that talent who are actually looking for untraditional path. They are not looking at just exploring the government or corporate job. They have a very viable path to join startups, and that's what makes us going. We see a lot of returns from the work that we do here at SGInnovate in those regards.
So it's if I summarize it, it's invest in a team that are building the community and have build a purpose-driven community.
Absolutely.
I have to agree with Stuan and Pavel, especially on the fact that it's about the community itself. So that means it includes speakers, it includes partners, it includes people in the audience. And just to see the good feedback. I had speakers who went from just speaking on the event to reaching out to me after, hey, I like the event, can we do something similar at my company? Or I would like to get more engaged with people, can I maybe teach some workshops for you? From attendees, I had friends when I came here, they were like visiting Singapore, trying to get a job. They met potential co-founders or employers on the events itself, and now they are practically building companies together. So I would say just seeing this direct result, like you cannot get to know everyone in the audience, of course, but you always kind of create a relationship with few people, and you see them grow, and that's really something very inspiring. Or just see, I don't know, LinkedIn message after, like, hey, that was a good event, please do more. So it's about personal touch for me still. Singapore is a small place, so I feel like it's still possible.
Okay, so have a personal touch and be in touch with your community. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for listening. And I wish you have a good day. And if you're building community, good luck with that. And stay in touch with us, okay?